Good morning. This is Victor Antonio with another sales ride-along moment where you ride along and I talk about sales. It's early in the morning, got a training program this morning, so let's see how that goes. But one of the things I'm going to talk about in that training program is I really want to look at a new concept that I've been putting together, and I want to kind of see how it works with the group. What I'm always looking for are ways to really simplify the sales process, or at least how we think about selling in general, so that when we're in a meeting, we're not trying to recall a bunch of processes about, I should do this, I should say this, I should now show this, I should now do this. But what if in our minds we could have a paradigm, a model of what we're really trying to accomplish in that meeting? And I've come up with this simple concept that I call gain, magnitude, effort. Just gain, magnitude, and effort. Let me walk through all three, and then let's see what you think about it. Now, let's talk about the customer. The customer's always looking for one thing, and that is that if you're coming in to sell them something, in their brains, they're thinking, how is this going to make my life better? Fair enough? In other words, they're looking for the contrast. I want you to record that word. They're looking for the contrast. Here's where I am today, the before and after. They want to know, what is the before and after? Here's where I am today, what are you going to show me, and where will I be tomorrow? And when I look at that difference, that is the gain. Okay, let's look at that as the gain. The difference between where I am now and what you have to offer represents the gain. Now, the gain is like selling the features and the benefits and say, here's how much more you're going to get, Mr. Customer. Here's how much more you'll be able to add. Excuse me. All these are wonderful things. But now, the second thing we have to look at, and the customer's thinking about, is that, okay, Victor, I see that your product can help me a little bit, i.e., there's gain in buying from you and using your product. But then the second component of that is the magnitude. Well, Victor, how big is the gain? Again, mentally, the customer's thinking this. They won't verbalize it, but it's there. If I change over, how much better will I be with your product, Victor? I know there's a gain. I know that the before and after, there's a change. There's a difference, right? But how big is that difference, Victor? Let's put this in weight loss terms, right? So if I'm weighing 200 pounds today and your program's going to help me get down to 199, well, okay, there's a gain there, right? In this case, we want to lose weight, so it's a negative gain. But there's a difference there, but only 1 pound. That's the magnitude. Well, that's not big enough to motivate me. So as we're talking to our customer, they're saying, is there a gain? Yes. Can you help me? Yes. Okay. Second, what's the magnitude of that gain? So let's say that your product can help them save not only, let's say if it was only $100 a month, they're going, oh, that's not a lot of money, Victor. That's not a big magnitude. But what if I said to them, this could save you $2,000 a month. Now let's pretend for now that I could actually prove that I can break out a return on investment calculator, and I can show them that. It'll be a quick break even. They'll get their money back right away, pretty much, but the return on investment is there, and they'll essentially be saving about $1,000 a month. Let's just use that number, $1,000 a month. Now, to some people, that's a lot of money. To others, it's not gonna, again, the magnitude's not big enough. But let's assume that it is a lot of money. And if you're working for a large, a company that sells B2B stuff, maybe instead of $1,000 a month, it's $10,000 a month. Get the idea? Play with your own numbers. But let's assume now it's a simple sale. B2C, it's only $1,000 a month, and that's a lot of money. Okay, that's a good percentage of cost. So now the customer says, okay, well, $1,000 a month. Victor, that's a lot of money. It's not a great deal of money, but it's a lot of money. Then the third question. So first of all, there's the gain. Let me repeat myself. First, the gain. There is a difference, Victor. You could help me. Second was the magnitude. Well, how big is that difference, Victor? It was $1,000. The last part, I think, is the real tricky part. This is where I think we get hung up. We're able to prove the gain. We're able to prove there's a magnitude, there's a difference, there's a cost savings or revenue increase, right? We can show that. But then the last part is effort. See, what is the amount of effort, time and effort required for me to actually have that gain magnitude? So in other words, well, Victor, okay, I can save $1,000 a month, but, what does that mean to me? What do I have to do internally in terms of my company to actually be able to get that $1,000 a month saving? Does that mean I have to retrain all my people? Is this going to be a complicated installation? Am I have to worry about maintenance costs? What are the other mitigating circumstances or, I guess, situations that are going to happen that are going to impact my business? In other words, is it worth switching over for $1,000 a month? That's the effort part. Now, the technical term or phrase for this is switchover cost. What's the switchover cost, Victor? In other words, what's it going to cost me to switch over from what I'm doing now to what you're offering? And in the client's mind, this is key, in the client's mind, if they perceive the switchover cost as being too big compared to the magnitude, they're going to say, yeah, it's not worth our time. You've seen this happen. This happens a lot. We've actually shown the customer that there's a gain. We've actually shown the customer that there's a magnitude. But the customer still doesn't decide to go forward. And that's because internally, in terms of the company, the gain, the effort, the time required, the switchover cost is too high. Now, this leads to the kind of fourth component. So we talked about the gain, we talked about the magnitude, the how much, and then the effort to switch over. The fourth component, which is really a subcomponent of effort, is the perceived effort. Sometimes we perceive something to be more difficult than it really is. Have you ever been in that situation where you've been ignoring a task you know you should have done? Something around the house, right? Something you should be doing. So now I got to get that fixed. I got to fix that door. I got to fix that jam, whatever it may be. Do you ever have that? You got to fix something, and in your mind you're like, oh, I don't want to get around. I don't want to do this. Now's not a good time, and you come up with all kinds of excuses not to do it. I do it a lot, right? And so what happens is, we finally say, okay, I got to get this done. Let me just go ahead and get it done. And then you finally get to working on it. And you realize you knocked it out in about maybe 5 or 10 minutes. In other words, it really wasn't that hard to do. And then you ask yourself, I should have done this earlier. This wasn't that tough to do. But what happened? Psychologically, what was happening in your head is you imagined that it was going to be much more difficult to do. Now, this is important in selling because sometimes people see the gain. They see the magnitude, the difference. They recognize the effort, but when in looking at the effort, they go, that just might be too much work to do. That might be too much, time and effort invested on my part, my company's part, to switch over. And see, our job as a salesperson is to first highlight the gain. Got it? Make sure there's a big enough magnitude to make them say, that's interesting. And as we describe effort, what we need to do is minimize the effort. In other words, tell them that the switchover cost isn't that great. And really work hard at managing their perceived effort of what they think it's going to cost. Now, one of the best ways of doing this is through a testimonial or a customer profile, a case study of a customer profile. Basically, something like this. Mr. Customer, many of my clients think that's going to be very difficult to switch over. Well, let me give you an example of a client that's in your similar market niche and what they did and how long it took them to switch over and some of the things they went through. Then you walk the client through this, and as you're doing this, you're obviously trying to minimize their perception of the effort required to switch over. So again, next time you're doing a presentation, keep in mind, are you demonstrating a gain to the customer, the before and after? And if you're demonstrating a before and after, there is a gain, what's the magnitude of the gain? Once you get to the magnitude of the gain, remember the next step is, okay, what's the perceived effort? They're going to think that the switchover cost is going to be too much time and effort. My job as a salesperson is to what? Show them the gain, show them the magnitude, and reduce the perceived effort to switch over so they're more likely to buy my product than not. This is Victor Antonio with another Sales Ride Along, reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care.